Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm Blake.
And I'm Kelsey.
And thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, make sure you hit that bell, that subscribe button so you can stay up to date on all the things that we drop on this channel and all the other stuff that we do. We're so grateful that you're taking just a few minutes out of your day to check this video out. Kels, so this is a little bit different.
Yeah.
We're not doing the podcast, taking a little bit of a detour, just a tad.
A little bit.
But we want to talk to you guys about something that we've been weighing for a little bit now as far as making a video. But bottom line, we used to work at Kenneth Copeland Ministries, and we want to talk a little bit about our perspective and what that means. So right out the gate, we're going to give you just a timeline so you have really an understanding. There's certain things that we're going to cover in this video. We're not going into everything. We do not consider this or any of our content in any way, shape, or form to be a discernment ministry or any other stuff that's trending right now.
Well,
go ahead.
And I think too, like before we dive into it, like, this is something we've wrestled with for a while because one, there's a lot of criticism that comes out about this, and a lot of people seem very set in their beliefs concerning the ministry, and
Specifically, just Kenneth Copeland.
And we're not really people that listen. We're not here for an arguing match.
Yeah.
We're hoping to bring some perspective
and
maybe shed some light on a situation that we don't feel like the whole truth is being presented.
So a little bit about what we mean by this. So we worked at Kenneth Copeland Ministries. More specifically, we worked at the church, which is Eagle Mountain International Church. I worked there from 2015 to 2000, or very beginning of 2020. I was one of the youth pastors during my time there. You also worked there, but you started working there in...
I started working there at the end of 2013, straight out of college, and worked there until the same time you did in early 2020.
And then eventually, in the very beginning of 2020, we stepped away to go pursue other opportunities working and serving churches, which we are so incredibly thankful for. We're not here to bash the ministry. If you're looking for a bunch of deep dirt... This ain't it.
Nope.
So you go ahead and click next because that's not what we're about to do. But I want to make this video because in YouTube verse specifically, I have seen that there's really three topics that come up when it comes to the ministry, but more importantly, Kenneth Copeland in and of himself. And these are the three things. One, that there's funny business going on with the money. Number two, that he's demon possessed. And number three, his wealth or just his role as a pastor. And I was like, okay, we can bring some perspective on those three things. I know there's other talking points, a lot of debate on other stuff. We're not getting into this video. We're going to cover these three things, right? And we're going to do it from the perspective of the fact that we worked there for a season. So number one of the things that we see a lot of is people have an issue either with what he says or how he preaches, mostly in terms of just some things he says and teaches, and they come at it from the lens of him being a pastor.
Yeah, he's actually not a pastor.
Yep.
He never claims to be a pastor. He's not a pastor at the church. He's never been Pastor Copeland or Pastor Kenneth, ever.
Yep.
He is an evangelist.
An evangelist, and he wants to operate in the office of the evangelist and the prophet. Now, as to whether or not there's issues there or not, we're not covering that in this video.
Yeah.
I think that there is some very reasonable debates about specific teachings, absolutely. But I think it helps from a perspective standpoint. And when we say he's never been a pastor, while working there, he was very open, and he himself would say that he is not a pastor, does not operate in the gift of pastor. Now, the gray area there is because there is a church tied to the ministry that he oversees, and he does oversee all that. So for you, that may be
figuratively, yes.
For you, that may be enough. You're like, that's it. But I think it is at least a helpful perspective as someone who used to work there. And one of the things that really I wanted to highlight that was because there was a video from someone who said they used to work there a long time ago, and in that video they were claiming that he was Pastor Copeland. I'm just telling you,
he's never been Pastor Copeland. In the time we were there, or even the time after, he's never been.
So take that for what it is, okay? There's always been someone else that was a pastor of the church.
And that's important because I think, and we can't really dive deep into that in this, but it's important to know the different gifts that are given to the body of Christ and how they operate, because a pastor is very different than an evangelist. Now, Again, that's not to dive into the nitty gritties of
Nope.
like the right or the wrong, but like understanding those giftings and the differences between the two is kind of important
Yeah.
to kind of understand a little bit of the perspective of what is Kenneth Copeland
And again,
Ministries.
there's great conversation there. I know there's a video that went viral. Actually, the one video went viral literally weeks after we left of him declaring he stood in the office of the prophet and what that meant. Again, maybe there's another video for that another time. I'm not trying to diminish the argument one way or the other regarding that. I just think it's important to understand that for people to come in and hold him to the standard of a pastor, he himself has never put himself in that. And again, take that for what it is. Okay, number 2, the one of the big ones is money.
Yeah.
So before I share my thoughts,
Yeah,
what are your
sure.
thoughts as far as just money?
So as someone who worked very heavily with the accounting department out there, as like an admin for a whole department, like I oversaw budgets for events, I oversaw budgets.
Careful now.
But I oversaw budgets for the youth ministry, the young adult ministry,
Yep.
and then obviously for different events that we did. I have never been a part of a church that has that structured of a financial system
Yep.
and that detailed of tracking. Like everything we did had a specific budget that we tracked almost in like I don't know, like Heckbook, if you will,
Yeah.
kind of system, and everything was coded to exactly what budget it was coming out of, and there were lots of coding that happened.
Yeah.
So like the accounting system and the tracking of funds was extremely detailed.
Yeah.
If I didn't have the receipt to prove it, I could almost guarantee I would get a call from accounting of,
Yeah.
hey, where's the receipt for this and the detailed listing of what was spent here.
And the reason for that, at least at our level, was for there to be good accountability and for the money to be handled the correct way. Now, does that mean that I can speak to every single dollar that's been spent out there and the decisions that were made above me?
No.
Absolutely not. Nor are we sitting here saying anyone that has any issues with how they spent them is totally wrong. No,
We don't know everything.
I don't know everything. I can tell you, again, at our level, what we saw, and that was in, 15, 20 years now of doing various ministry stuff, the standard that we were held to be accountable for the money was, they set that standard compared to any other ministry or church that we've been involved with up to this point. Again, not saying that there has or hasn't been funny stuff going on.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I could add this detail too, like there's always accountability. But like, for example, like I oversaw someone else's credit card. They didn't have access to report their credit. I did.
Yeah.
And then someone else checked my work. So like, it wasn't just, there's a lot of accountability in that. And so at least on our level, it was very above board, very above
Very
reproach
intentional.
on how we spent money, where it was being spent. Yeah. Again, we can't speak above us. We don't know what goes on above us. We hope for the best based on what our experience was,
Yeah.
but we don't know for sure.
But again, I think it's important because the only ever feedback you hear from these reports that come out are these former employees that saw, and I'm just telling you, I'm not saying that those supposed reports are wrong or they're lying. But to give you a perspective, any given time, there's 350 to 500 people working out there. So one employee off somewhere of the department, there's no way they have a level of awareness as far as the whole ministry goes.
Yeah.
It's just not possible. And then the last thing that's been coming up a lot, people like to use it as a way to have headlines for their videos or just put it out there, is this statement that Brother Copeland is demon possessed. And one of the main videos, there's two main videos I'm seeing, right? The one is the ET report from I think 2017, and then there's another video of him doing communion I think 2 years ago.
Okay.
There's a video of him doing where he is, it's not a great look.
No.
We were not there at that point. I can't speak to all the inner workings of what was going on there. That was 2022. That was 2 years after we left. But the ET thing, we were on staff when that happened.
Yeah.
I think it's important to note that when that reporter came and found him, she had been told repeatedly that was a no access area and to reach out to the office to schedule. She didn't like that. So what they did was they came around behind a church literally seconds after he finished preaching. They were not expecting it at all. Maybe you think that that's fair. I don't know. And ran up on him as soon as he had finished preaching. Now, the look on the video was not great.
Yeah,
It
which
wasn't great.
If you've never preached a message before, it's incredibly exhausting.
Yep.
And Brother Copeland is in his 80s, and his messages are several hours long.
Yes.
Again, not trying to justify the look, but just to gain understanding of the situation, I think is important.
Yeah.
Like, we're truly going to be people that seek to understand each other. You kind of got to understand a little bit more of the situation that was portrayed. The man had spoken for several hours and is in his 80s.
Yeah.
So take with that what you will.
Yeah, again, we're not avoiding certain topics because we're not willing to discuss it. If you would like us to do another video on some of this and cover some of it, I'm more than open to go that route. For this video, one, we want to be aware of this video's time. Two, it's literally just to hit these high marks that we're seeing going around. And give a little bit of our perspective from the season that we were able to be there. I will say this, that the other thing from the ET video was there was a level of apologizing internally because of what happened, because there's a lot of fallout just as a staff and having to handle all of that. There was a level of recognition that could have been handled a whole lot better. But the jump of saying that he's demon possessed, and again, I'm gonna be fully transparent. I do not know Brother Copeland directly. If he saw
met
me,
him while we were there.
I've shook his hands a couple times. There are other members of the family that would know me, that I love dearly. We got friends out there. There are people that we are precious people that are working out there, regardless of what you think of the ministry as a whole. So I want to be very forthcoming that is the level of a relationship, that there is contact with people in that circle. But the statement that he's demon possessed, and I wanted to take a look at Luke chapter 4. So in Luke chapter 4, we actually see one of the instances of a demon possessed man. And one of the things that you will often see with demon possession is there is a level of lack of control that usually takes place when demon possession is happening. In fact, in Luke chapter 4, we're told this when Jesus is interacting, that the demons had a level of control. They were able to cause harm. There was a level of aggression that was going on there. For the people that are claiming he's demon possessed, respectfully, you've never been around anyone that's actually demon possessed. You're putting that out there because you think it sounds really good. Again, outside of the theology, the approach, how they're teaching, that's a whole different conversation. But to go to the extra mile to claim demon possession is a pretty extreme statement. And no, I'm not going to the length of saying, don't touch the Lord's anointed. We're not covering that.
No.
I'm just saying this as a believer, talking about someone who, in my opinion, regardless of what you think, still genuinely loves the Lord. What I've seen out of the man, again, as someone who used to work out there, his behavior towards employees, his behavior towards people in and around the ministry, that is a very kind man. He's a kind man who is in his 80s. And again, having been in churches and ministry, seen the good, seen the bad. I've seen people who are genuinely not nice, not good people who claim to be in ministry. And I'm just telling you, Kenneth Copeland is not one of them. You can disagree with the whole lot, but to go to the length of claiming demon possession simply because a man in his late 80s, let's be very honest, looks like a man in his late 80s is just not okay. And that one gets me a little bit fired up.
Are there other things that he teaches that, I don't know, you may not see in the Bible, you may not be 100%, maybe.
That we don't necessarily
that we may not necessarily agree.
Again, came to a conclusion to end our season of employment there because there was some new direction that was taking place that we didn't necessarily want to be a part of as an employee. I'm not implying that that's anything immoral or illegal.
Yeah.
Just saying that for our personal family and where we were wanting to be in terms of ministering and working in the church, we felt like we needed to go a different direction. And again, I think there's great conversations to happen in terms of theological approach, what you're teaching, how you're teaching. But to go the length of saying, man, that guy's demon possessed. Yeah. I'm just being very and I'm not saying that as someone who's been around a ton of demon possessed, but I think there's really two instances that I can say for sure. It's so off. It's so off. And there's just, I don't know. Again, I know members of the family. Some of them are very dear to me, and that one hurts a little bit.
Yeah.
That one hurts a little bit because I just can't get behind that.
Ultimately, listen, preachers, pastors, evangelists, people who claim to serve the Lord, one, you got to look at the fruit of their life to see if they're really following the Lord closely. But ultimately, Like, you got to bring it back to the word. Whatever they say, whatever they do, you bring it back to the word of God. Like, it's perfect.
Yeah.
Like, nobody is God or Jesus except Jesus.
Yeah.
So holding pastors, preachers,
Prophets, apostles, all the different
spiritual leaders to the perfection of Jesus is unfair. Now, do I think there's accountability and there needs to be a level of looking like Jesus if you're going to lead people to Jesus? Absolutely. Paul even says, imitate me as I imitate Jesus. That's the kind of leader we want to follow, right? But you can't take any leader's word for 100%. You have to be in the Bible yourself. You have to be spending time with God. You have to be spending time becoming more and more like Jesus through his word, through communion with him.
Yeah.
And you have to bring everything you hear, especially in this world that we live in today, through social media, all the things, to the word of God.
Yeah.
You have to study it for yourself. And yeah, I think that's
I have some more thoughts. We may break that into another video, but again, the purpose of this one was just to bring a little bit of perspective from two people that did work out there. If you have questions, let us know. If you want some follow-up, be more than happy to do that. I know there's maybe people that are probably have completely different perspectives and really strong opinions on this one. This is coming from two people who had a chance to work there. We look back on that season and we're very thankful for it. There are a lot of just precious people out there, and we just wanted to be able to come in and bring our perspective, and that was really it.
And I think, it's important to realize too, like, our time out there wasn't perfect either.
Nope.
But like, our heart is not to tear people down.
Yeah.
Like, it's to help offer perspective so that maybe you can seek some more understanding about a situation. As my mom always used to say, one of the greatest lessons she ever taught me was there's two sides to every story.
Yeah.
Two sides to every story. And I think that encourages us to seek understanding and seek perspective.
Okay, well, thank you guys so much for checking this video out. If you haven't already, make sure you hit that follow, that subscribe, that bell icon, and
make sure you check out this video that YouTube is recommending for you as well.
Thank you guys. We'll see you next time.